All right, welcome back to the program. In case you're just joining us, it's time for our interview. Like I said at the beginning of the program, I'm hosting His Excellency Wamkele Mene, who is the Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat. He's in Nigeria and he's stopping by here. Welcome, Your Excellency, and welcome to Nigeria. Just before the break, we were talking about this is not your first time in Nigeria, but in Abuja, not your first time also. So welcome.
Thank you very much.
I hope you've been having some kind of good treats. They've been giving you our food, at least. It's just because of COVID. Perhaps it would have been more interesting.
So far, so good. I have no complaints. I've had a good visit. So thank you very much for welcoming me. All
right. Now, let's take a look at this. You know, since AfCFTA was launched by the African heads of states, that idea was even molded, I think, in 2012 and all of that. Do you think that the African Continental Free Trade Area still holds the promise? We have the largest market in terms of participating countries and people, a GDP of about 2.6 trillion being projected. Do you think that AfCFTA still holds that promise?
Oh, absolutely. Even in the midst of COVID-19, the African Continental Free Trade Area has a great deal of potential for Africa. In fact, when you look at what is happening around the world, many countries have provided stimulus packages to their citizens. The US over $3 trillion, some are saying close to $6 trillion of an economic stimulus package. The European Union close to $1 trillion of a recovery stimulus package. No single African country can do that. That means that we have to look at this AfCFTA as a recovery tool year on year from 2021 as a driver of economic growth in Africa. So boosting intra-Africa trade is absolutely essential and is an integral part of Africa's recovery. So in my view, the AfCFTA now holds even more of a promise post-COVID-19. By the year 2035, we expect that we will double intra-Africa trade, leveraging on this agreement, on the AfCFTA, and we expect, according to the World Bank, that we will lift over 30 million Africans out of extreme poverty, over 60 million Africans out of moderate poverty from implementing this agreement. And so we have to seize the opportunity to significantly advance our economic development objectives as a tool. This agreement is a tool for that ambition.
Aren't you cautiously optimistic? Because if you take a look at even the numbers suggest that inter-African trade constitutes about 15% of overall African external trade, 3% of global trade. So we are not really found within a global trade. If you take a look at even trade with other countries in Africa, that's about 15% intra-regional trade controlled by South Africa, Namibia, Zambia, and Nigeria. Those are the big four countries that control intra-regional trade. If you take a look at intra-continental trade, we trade with the EU, 67%, Asia, 58%, North America, as well as Latin America. So how optimistic are you that, because I've heard you also say that COVID-19 seems to be the stimulus package. So how optimistic are you that even with all those numbers, we can still come out brazenly strong?
Well, intra-Africa trade is low relative to the other regions that you've mentioned. And one of the reasons, in fact, the main reason why intra-Africa trade is low is because of the barriers to intra-Africa investment, the barriers, the non-tariff barriers, what we call non-tariff measures, that actually constrain growth and intra-Africa trade. That is a significant contributor to this low percent. The second reason, of course, is that we are overly reliant on the export of primary commodities, primary products to Europe. Over 53% of our trade is with the European Union. So we have got to implement and accelerate, as we are directed by the agreement, we have to accelerate Africa's industrialization. We have to make sure that we build our export capacity. We have to make sure that we build our productive capacity across the African continent, not just in those regions that you have mentioned that are relatively industrialized already. We have to stop trading apples for apples in Africa. We have to develop the capacity to trade value-added products, to have manufacturing across the African continent, so that we can have the specialization that we need to complement the elimination of non-tariff barriers and the elimination of tariff barriers.
Don't you think that this limited industrialization that Africa is suffering and the extraction of raw materials, just like you've said, trading apples for apples, don't you think that it would also be a kind of hindrance? Because the question also there is, bigger economies may benefit.
Yes.
And how do you protect smaller economies in Africa?
Absolutely. In the immediate short term, the countries that you've mentioned that are relatively already industrialized in Africa will be the immediate beneficiaries. We know this from empirical evidence. However, it means that we have a challenge to make sure that we have inclusive growth, to make sure that we have inclusive benefits of the agreement. And one of the ways in which you do that is, as I was saying, by establishing regional value chains across the African continent, ensuring that all countries are part of this ambition that we have of industrial development in Africa. I made the example yesterday of Singapore, that in the 1950s was a fishing village, and today Singapore's contribution to global trade is larger than that of Africa combined. But if you look at the trajectory of Singapore or any other country that has managed to industrialize, they did it through disciplined implementation of industrial development. They did it through market diversification and diversification of their economy. And all of these things have been done before. I believe we can do them. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of hard work, but we will be able to do it. Now, on the question about the smaller countries, we have built into the agreement tools, instruments to prevent, for example, dumping of products, to prevent subsidized products from taking over other markets. And we have devised and crafted also tools to prevent transshipment of products from third parties. The rules are very clear on all of these issues. The challenge, of course, will be implementing the rules that prevent all of these things from happening. We don't want this agreement to create job losses. We want this agreement to create jobs. And so we cannot tolerate a circumstance where there is transshipment of products, where there is dumping of products from country A or country B within the AfCFTA. And so that means that we're going to have to vigorously implement and vigorously apply anti-dumping measures, measures that fight transshipment of goods. And we will have to work with the customs authorities in individual countries to do that. Now, the last point on this, I would say, we are working with AfCFTA, who have been a very strong supporter of the AfCFTA. We're working with AfCFTA to finalize an adjustment facility that will cushion countries who experience, the countries that you mentioned, who will experience short-term revenue falls or short-term revenue constraints as a result of implementing the agreement, as a result of reducing their tariffs. And AfCFTA has already announced that we will start off with an amount of about $500 million US. They will help us to access global capital markets, to increase this facility, the funds that are available in the facility, so that we're able to make direct interventions in those countries that today may not have the same productive capacity, but whom we want to implement the agreement nonetheless.
Let's talk about this protectionism and this isolationist theory we're seeing right now around the world, spearheaded even by the United States.
Yes.
How do you think, even with the CFTA right now, how do we separate the politics of internal protection? Because we've seen also that COVID-19, during, especially when the world was on a lockdown, a lot of countries hoarded their products, medicines and all of that. So how do we separate the politics of internal protection from by individual countries from the overall economic objective of a unified market?
Well, we actually, when you look at the so-called trade wars, when you look at the effect of COVID-19 on global markets for these products that are required, that are essential to fight the pandemic, the fact that these countries, as you said, hoarding them, caused distortion in the market. We know that, that all of these things have had a negative effect. As the rest of the world increases protectionism, as the rest of the world increases investment or puts up barriers to investment, Africa has been doing the opposite. We have an agreement that requires us to reduce intra-Africa trade barriers in the form of non-tariff measures, as I mentioned, that requires us to reduce tariffs, intra-Africa tariffs, to zero by year 15, starting from next year. We will reduce tariffs to zero on over 90% of our products. And we believe that this will significantly boost intra-Africa trade. And so as you look at the direction that Africa is taking, it is that of reducing barriers, as the rest of the world seems to be increasing barriers. And so we have, as Africa, I believe we have a legitimate claim to say that we are actually now a model for opening of borders, for opening of trade. And the situation with COVID-19, of course, did present a temporary disruption, but I think we will overcome that. And I think that of the 28 countries that have ratified the agreement, they will live up to their obligations of reducing barriers to trade and opening markets in Africa.
How far with the technical work right now that is going on, at least before January 1, 2021? AfCFTA is supposed to have started trading on July 1, 2020, yes, but because of COVID-19. So how far is the technical work right now, at least from that time till now? Yeah,
the technical work is ongoing, particularly in the area that we call rules of origin. There have been virtual meetings that of course not ideal, but under the circumstances, that is the best that could be done. We are absolutely determined to be ready for the start of trading on the 1st of January 2021. That is the directive of heads of states, and I don't think that the heads of states will change their minds about that. That date is now set in stone. There is a summit on the 5th of December, a special summit of heads of states on the AfCFTA, where we will have to present to them, and certainly I will have to present to them, our state of readiness for implementation of the AfCFTA. So we are determined to move along. I should say that we should not expect that each and every single country will implement the agreement and will have the requisite customs infrastructure from the 1st of January 2021. Usually it takes 9 months to 1 year for a country to do that. But there will be many countries who will be ready, and we will work with everybody to make sure that that in time we all have the requisite customs infrastructure to implement the agreement. So I'm optimistic, I'm eternally optimistic about this agreement, because I believe that it is actually, when you look at post-colonial Africa, this is the first time that we have had such a pan-African initiative that is supported by the highest level in Africa. All heads of states want this to succeed, and all heads of states are fully committed, even from the countries that have not yet ratified. Remember, there are 55 countries in Africa, 54 signed the agreement, signifying political will. We've never had that before. And I've attended closed sessions of summits of heads of states And in the last 5 years, it was the first time where actually they will set aside half a day to talk about trade and economic development in Africa, something that we've never seen before. Most summits before focused, and correctly so of course, focused mainly on peace and security issues. Now, heads of states realize that actually trade and economic development is at the heart of peace and security. And this year being the year of silencing the guns, we have an opportunity to accelerate Africa's economic development.
Speak to me about perhaps the framework for collaboration, especially with regional communities such as ECOWAS, COMESA, SADC, EAC. Collaboration even beyond tariffs, because there are other processes beyond tariffs. Speak to me about that.
We are going to work with the regional economic communities because, as you said, they are building blocks for intra-Africa market integration. It is in the agreement. We are required by the AfCFTA agreement to work with the RECs to build on the progress that they have made. Yesterday, I had a very, very good discussion with the president of ECOWAS. Next month, I will travel to Zambia to meet with the head of COMESA. We will meet with all the heads of the regional economic communities. The work program for the AfCFTA and the RECs is, in some cases, is exactly the same. For the reduction and elimination of non-tariff barriers, which are an albatross on and constrain Africa's further enhancement of intra-Africa trade, we are working with them already to eliminate, from a regional level, to eliminate these non-tariff barriers. We have set up mechanisms that are supported by UNCTAD to fight these non-tariff barriers and to eliminate them. The agreement that we of course, way in terms of which all of this was foreseen, is the Abuja Treaty. The Abuja Treaty foresees that we have to adopt as Africa a linear model of integration of our market. We foresee, in terms of the agreement, that Africa one day will be a customs union. And already heads of states discussed this issue in the closed session last year at their summit in Addis Ababa. And they decided that as the African Union, we should look into feasibility studies for how we can become a customs union by the year 2023. And those studies are ongoing. So it's an ambitious project to become a customs union. It may not happen by 2023. We will have to look at the outcomes of the studies. But the point is that the regional economic communities are the stepping stones that we need to get to a point where we are actually a customs union. The African Continental Free Trade Area is a stepping stone to being a customs union. So ultimately, according to the Abuja Treaty, what we will have is a customs union. We will no longer have ECOWAS as a customs union. We will no longer have SACU as a customs union. We will no longer have the EAC as a customs union. We will have one customs union under the African Union, and that is what the Abuja Treaty foresees.
There's this, one of the sticky points is, which you mentioned earlier, the rules of origin, because we also see that some other countries outside Africa may bring in some stuff.
Yes.
In African countries, the stamp is perhaps made in Nigeria, but is actually made in China,
yes, and
all of that. How would you be able, how does the CFTA look at this and perhaps solve this issue? Rules of origin is a sticky point. There's also tariffs reduction as another sticky point.
Yes. Well, rules of origin are absolutely critical for two reasons. One, to foster industrial development in Africa. And as you say, we do not want to import a shirt, put a button on it and say made in the AfCFTA. We want to foster industrial development in a range of sectors, in a range of products, where we actually have manufacturing and productive capacity in Africa. So the rules of origin regime that we adopt has to require, and it does, has to require value addition to a very, very high degree. And the rules that have been agreed to so far, the threshold is relatively high compared to other free trade agreements. So for industrial development, rules of origin are indispensable. And then also, rules of origin serve to prevent transshipment. But this is where we will have to work with the customs authorities to make sure that we build the capacity of our customs authorities to enforce the rules. Because these are new rules, this is a new trade regime, this is a new tariff book, what they call a tariff book. And so we will have to improve our capacity to prevent transshipment. We don't want this agreement to lead to job losses that is caused by transshipment. We don't want domestic markets to be displaced. We want to create an AfCFTA market that produces for itself, that exports to itself and to the rest of the world. So we will be, in effect, we will be achieving a number of things. We will be positioning ourselves through our rules of origin and industrial development framework. We will be positioning ourselves to be globally competitive in 20 to 30 years' time. We've got to start that work now. We have to start that work now. So we will conclude the rules of origin. We have to, because that's what the heads of states directed us, that we conclude by the end of this year.
You know, at the heart of this is also the payment and the payment settlement system for trade. And I know, at least the last, because I've been following you and and the CFTA, that you're also working with AfCFTA on it. So can you just give me an update or a progress so far concerning payment and payment settlement systems?
One of the factors that constrain intra-Africa trade is the lack of ability to seamlessly transact across the African continent. Usually you have to, there is a correspondent bank that is in the US or in Europe. There are issues around transferability and convertibility of currency. And so we are working with AfCFTA. I had, in fact, last week, Friday, was my last conversation with President Orama of AfCFTA. We are working to develop a platform. The platform will enable the transactions, trade transactions under the AfCFTA to be done in local currency. So payments will be done in local currency, settlement will be done in local currency, wherever you as a receiver may be. And we hope that...
Local currency of the country?
I'm sorry?
Local currency of the country? Of
so
the
you will send funds from Kenya in Kenyan shillings, and you will receive them in Nigerian naira, without having yourself, as the sender, without having to convert first to the dollar, which adds another layer of complexity and cost, of course. So we want transactions under the AfCFTA to be affordable, to be broadly accessible to billions of Africans, the 1.2 billion Africans, to be accessible to small, medium enterprises. This is how you boost intra-Africa trade beyond just reducing the tariffs. These are some of the non-tariff barriers that we were facing. And so we are very, very grateful, and we appreciate the fact that AfCFTA has stepped up and is willing to partner with us. I'm also happy to say that the Association of African Central Banks has also expressed an interest to work with us, and in due course we should be meeting trilaterally to take this forward, so that we can present to the Special Summit of Heads of States, we can present a common approach to the heads of states.
You know, the bane of African trade is also about movement, free movement of people, goods and services. How do you think that the single air transport market that was launched by the AU, I think in January 2018, to boost air travel and connectivity, the AU has also talked about enhancing free movement of goods and services by launching a passport. How will all the steps enhance the ease of doing business in Africa?
That is the ultimate goal, that all of these different instruments ultimately contribute to enhanced and improved trade in Africa. The AfCFTA actually already makes provision for movement of business persons. So we have already built it into the agreement that business persons should be able to move freely, not under an immigration law regime, but under a trade law regime. So we expect that under the Protocol on Trade in Services, countries are required, it's actually not even an expectation on our part, countries have an obligation to open movement of persons in accordance with the Protocol on Trade in Goods. The Protocol on Movement of Persons is another higher step, which is legally unrelated to this. They are separate instruments. We don't want to wait for that instrument to enter into force. We are ready to proceed now under the AfCFTA. And of course, when we get to the point where we have a protocol on free movement of persons that has entered into force, it will complement our work. So there are complementarities between air traffic services and then, of course, the AfCFTA.
Your Excellency, I know I just have a few minutes with you, but still talking about this, you know that for African countries, before you go to like another country, you must land, of course, in Europe. There's no easy movement between or among countries in Africa. How can that be sorted? That's the A part of the question. The B part of the question also is that with COVID-19 pandemic, at the heart of trade is also investment. Are you looking at perhaps diaspora investment into Africa in terms of enhancing economic development and trade development in Africa? Because we have a lot of African diasporans. In Nigeria, for example, our remittances get to about 25, 26 billion a year. You know, so are you looking at that? And perhaps thirdly, women participation. We took a report earlier in terms of women participation in trade in Africa.
During the course of my campaigning for towards the election for this position, I said that I commit to making women and young Africans, to placing them at the center of implementation of this agreement. Very, very important segments of our society that we must take along with us as we implement this agreement so that it doesn't benefit only the big African corporations. And we are going to work very closely with women associations across the African continent to create that dialogue. Investment from the diaspora is important. Investment, intra-Africa investment is important. Investors were saying to me that we want to invest, but there were no rules. So now that we have established rules, whether you are an African investor or an investor in the diaspora, these rules should encourage further movement of capital and finance into Africa, because we now have the legal protections for investment. So we hope that a lot of barriers to investment that were presented because of a lack of certainty and lack of predictability of the environment in a Pan-African way, we hope that this agreement will address those questions.
How about the establishment of other bodies under the AfTA agreement, dispute the resolution body and all of that finally?
We have a protocol on dispute settlement, which, as I say, this issue of resolution of disputes, whether they're investment or whether they are intellectual property rights, we now have an avenue for resolving those disputes. We never had an avenue for resolving disputes that happened, let's say, between a country in ECOWAS and between the EAC. You would have had to go to the WTO to resolve those disputes. We now are able to say that we have established a mechanism that will be adjudicating our disputes in Africa in a fair, impartial, and competent way.
All right, I think I will leave it at that because our time is fast spent. I would have asked you of the WTO because I know you were head of mission for South Africa.
I was deputy head of mission.
Yes, deputy head of mission to WTO for South Africa. We're expecting a new DG for WTO. Do you think it's time for an African to head the organization? I
think it is time for the most competent person. And I have heard this question, should it be an African? Our Africans are very competent. So my emphasis would be on the most competent African. The narrative should be that we have Africans that are competent. But don't say that it should be WTO DG only because we're African. Because we have the competence. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, I've been speaking with His Excellency Wamkele Mene, who is the Secretary General at the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat in Ghana. The office was just commissioned or launched last month in August. That's the much you can take with His Excellency Wamkele Mene. Let's quickly take a break. When we come back, we will conclude the program. Do stay.
Nothing is more important than our children. Parents, the health of your children is in your hands. Don't send them out without ensuring that they are safe. As children prepare to return to school, what have you done to keep them protected? When it's time to resume, protect your child and others with CAS 3-in-1 Protection Pack. It comes with a medically approved face shield, a 100% cotton face mask, and a portable hand sanitizer spray approved by NAFDAC. Place your order and it will be delivered to your doorstep by FedEx courier service anywhere in Nigeria at no extra cost. Call our 24/7 call center at 09-904-1000 or visit our website at casppe.com.ng. CAS 3-in-1 Protection. Protect others to protect yourself.
African Economic Congress, this year celebrating its second edition, will see debates concerning key issues in African economies, holding with the theme Post-COVID-19, Africa in the New Economic Order, with over 30 local and international speakers. Be part of the largest business event in Africa from the 2nd to the 4th of November 2020 via broadcast television stations and digital platforms. AEC welcomes government institutions, businesses to showcase their products and services during the Congress. For inquiries, please contact 0907-3703-649 or 0906-6912-600 or email events@aecongress.org. Registration is now open on the website www.aecongress.org. Join us at the 2020 virtual edition of the African Economic Congress.
Hello everyone, welcome to the program. It's Moneyline with Nancy.
There is no other time than now that has been afforded us to reset the economy of Nigeria again.
It is in difficult time that nations take decisions to build their country.
Nancy, I think I would be remiss to say that, look, the Nigerian economy is vulnerable.
So we have to come up with strategies as governments. How do we deal with this issue of hunger? How do we get food into people's hands?
Who is the subsidy favoring?
There is no subsidy, is zero. It's zero forever, Nancy.
Subsidy has never benefited the ordinary Nigerian. It has continued to benefit only the elite. The aspiration for us is to make Nigeria a net exporter of petroleum products.
You can join us on all our social media platforms. Find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Go to YouTube now and subscribe. Moneyline with Nancy TV. Thank you for watching our video. Please hit the subscribe button below, turn on post notification to follow all our updates.